I filmed Diddy's documentary, but what I overheard him whisper to the mirror, it made me swear silence. This wasn't just another celebrity story. What he said to that mirror revealed a side of him he's been hiding for years. A side so dark, so unsettling, that I realized some secrets are meant to stay buried. And trust me, you won't believe what I uncovered. This isn't about fame. It's about the forgotten truths that can't stay locked away forever. When I got the call to film Diddy's documentary, I couldn't believe it. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The guy's a living legend, right? Everyone knows his name, his empire, his persona. To be that close to him, capturing his life for the world to see, this was big. No one had ever gotten access like this. I was going to be the one to show the world the man behind the headlines, the real Diddy. From the moment we stepped into his mansion, I could feel the weight of the world around me. The place was massive, just too perfect. Expensive art hung from every wall. Gold accents everywhere you looked. But even with all that wealth surrounding him, there was something off in the air. Like the mansion itself was holding its breath. The crew was excited. They were used to high-profile projects, but this was on a different level. But for me, I felt uneasy. There was something about Diddy that didn't quite add up. On the surface, he was everything you'd expect. A man with immense power and confidence. He spoke with ease, his voice a blend of charm and authority. But the longer I stayed in his presence, the more I realized something didn't sit right. It wasn't until we began filming that the odd moments started to creep in. It was subtle at first. A strange glance he'd cast at the mirror, or how he'd suddenly shift his posture when he thought no one was looking. The way he'd linger a second too long in front of it. I dismissed it at first. I figured maybe it was just nerves or a moment of self-reflection. Who am I to judge? But the second time it happened, I couldn't ignore it. We were setting up for a shot, and Diddy walked into the room, looked at himself in the mirror, and stood there in silence. It wasn't a normal glance. It was like he was talking to himself, but his lips didn't move. I thought I saw him whisper something, but the words were too soft to catch. And just like that, it was over. He turned and smiled, as if nothing happened, like it was completely normal. The crew didn't seem to notice, or maybe they just didn't care, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It was a feeling I couldn't explain. I mean, we were filming a documentary, not some psychological thriller. Why was I so unsettled by this? I tried to push it aside. Maybe it was just my imagination. After all, I was working with someone everyone admires. Who could blame me for feeling a little starstruck? But then it happened again, and again. Each time Diddy would approach that mirror, and there was something different about him when he did. A change in his expression, the way he held himself, almost like he was slipping into a different version of himself when he was in front of it. It wasn't just the whispers that were bothering me. It was the way the air in the room would feel thick, charged with something I couldn't quite place. Every time he stood there, it was like time slowed down. The crew wouldn't say a word. Everyone was too focused on the shoot, but I couldn't stop staring. Every time, Diddy would glance at the mirror again, like he was checking for something. Like the reflection was more than just a reflection. I knew something wasn't right, and I had to find out why. But that wasn't the worst of it. The whispers weren't just random. something else was there. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It wasn't just the occasional glance or the quiet moments Diddy spent in front of the mirror. No, this went beyond that. I was starting to feel like I was witnessing something that shouldn't be seen. Something private. Something dark. It was like he was speaking to someone in that reflection. And at first I tried to convince myself I was just overthinking it. But then the whisper happened. It was just a whisper at first. Soft, almost inaudible. But I heard it. I'd been sitting in the corner of the room watching the monitors going over footage from earlier in the day. I wasn't paying attention to Diddy, at least not directly. But when I glanced up, there he was, standing in front of that mirror again. Only this time, he wasn't just looking at himself. He was talking. And the words, they weren't meant for anyone in the room. They weren't even meant for the reflection. It was like he was speaking to something behind the mirror itself. A figure, a presence I couldn't see but felt all around me. It was so unnatural, so out of place that I froze. He was muttering under his breath like he was sharing a secret with the reflection. And when I heard it, I couldn't look away. "You don't remember it, do you?" Diddy's voice was barely audible, a cold whisper that sent a chill down my spine. "They won't remember." What the hell was he talking about? I tried to make sense of it. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was some weird form of self-talk, the kind we all do in private. But there was something about it that made my blood run cold. Diddy wasn't just talking to the mirror, he was pleading with it, begging it to keep something hidden. And the more I watched, the more I realized that the mirror wasn't just a tool for self-reflection. It was a portal, a vessel for something else. But what? I decided to get closer, to figure out what he was whispering to the mirror. I wasn't supposed to, of course. We were filming. I had a job to do, but curiosity got the better of me, and I found myself moving quietly toward the door, pushing it open just enough to hear more. "I didn't mean to forget," Diddy's voice cracked. "I didn't mean for it to slip away." His words were getting more desperate now, more personal. I had never heard him speak like this before. This wasn't the confident, untouchable mogul I knew. This was someone else entirely. Someone broken, someone afraid. I leaned in closer, but that's when he turned around. Just like that, the moment was gone. Diddy smiled his usual smile, that perfect mask of confidence. And for a second, it felt like nothing had happened, like I had imagined it. But I hadn't. I knew I hadn't. The whisper echoed in my mind long after it was over. They won't remember. What didn't they remember? And who was he talking about? I told myself it was nothing. Maybe I was just picking up on things that weren't there. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't shake the feeling that the mirror was hiding something. It wasn't just reflecting Diddy. It was holding him, holding his past, his mistakes, his secrets. And somehow, it had a way of bringing them to the surface, making him face them again and again. Over the next few days, I found myself more and more distracted. Every time Diddy stood in front of that mirror, I watched him. And every time, I heard more whispers. They started off small, fragmented. Sometimes it was just a few words. Other times, full sentences. So soft that I wasn't sure if I'd heard them at all. But I had. I couldn't ignore it. It was like the mirror was speaking to him and to me. One afternoon, while Diddy was filming an interview, I found myself standing in the hallway, staring at the mirror. It seemed to call to me, like I was drawn to it. I stepped closer, but as soon as I did, I felt a wave of unease hit me. For a split second, I thought I saw something. The figure behind Diddy in the reflection. Just a glimpse, but it was enough. A face I couldn't place. A face that looked familiar. I quickly shook it off. It had to be a trick of the light. My mind playing games with me. But the feeling stuck. The longer I watched, the more I became convinced that the mirror was hiding something, and that Diddy was more aware of it than he was letting on. The next time I got close enough to hear the whispers, I pressed my ear to the door, listening intently. I can't remember. Diddy's voice was barely above a whisper. But it's there. I know it is. This time, I heard something that stopped me cold. They know. They'll come for me. The words were chilling. They weren't meant for the mirror. They weren't meant for anyone in the room. They were meant for someone else. I didn't know who he was talking about. And I didn't know what he was afraid of. But I couldn't ignore it any longer. Diddy was keeping something buried deep, and the mirror wasn't just a reflection. It was a reminder. A portal to something he couldn't escape. Something that would haunt him forever. But this wasn't the worst of it. The whispers weren't just random. They weren't just Diddy's secrets. The mirror was alive with memories. And it was starting to show me things. And it wasn't just the mirror holding Diddy's secrets anymore. It was starting to remember mine. The more I stayed in that house, the more I realized that there was something I wasn't supposed to see. Diddy's behavior in front of that mirror was starting to make sense, but the more I tried to understand it, the more tangled it became. This wasn't just about a man checking himself out or rehearsing lines. There was a depth to it, a secret he was trying to bury. One evening, after filming had wrapped for the day, I was alone in the hallway, my mind racing with everything I had seen and heard. I stood there staring at that damn mirror, trying to make sense of it. What was Diddy hiding? What was the mirror holding? There was something about it that felt wrong. I couldn't explain it, but every time I looked into it, I felt like I was being pulled in, like it was drawing me into its depths, slowly revealing its secrets. But the more I looked, the less I understood. I spent hours that night scouring footage from earlier in the day, hoping to find something, anything that would explain Diddy's behavior. It was almost as if the whispers were playing tricks on me, twisting my perception. But when I watched the footage, it was clear. Something was off about the way Diddy interacted with the mirror. I saw him glance at it multiple times, his gaze shifting, as if he was seeing something else, something only he could see. It wasn't just the moments of silence, it was the way the mirror seemed to respond to him. I could feel it, a presence that wasn't quite right. Something was hidden inside it, buried deep beneath the surface. I knew I had to get closer to find out what Diddy was trying to hide. But here's where it gets strange. After hours of digging, after watching every frame, I began to notice something else. There were flashes, glitches almost, quick moments that I wasn't sure were real, faces I didn't recognize, distorted figures in the reflections behind Diddy, flickering in and out of view. I thought it was a mistake at first, a technical error. But when I played it back, the glitch was still there. And it wasn't just the camera, it was something in the mirror. It was as if the mirror was showing another reality, one that Diddy was trying to escape, trying to hide from the world. The faces in the reflections weren't random. They were familiar, but I couldn't place them. It was unsettling. Who were these people? Why did Diddy look at them as if he knew them? Why were they watching him from the reflection while he stood there oblivious? I tried to dismiss it as a trick of the mind, but every time Diddy stood in front of that mirror, I saw it again. The faces, the figures, they were always there, just out of reach. It felt like the mirror was showing me a version of Diddy's past that he never wanted to face. The more I watched, the more I realized that whatever it was, whatever those figures represented, it was connected to him in a way that went beyond just memories. That night, after the crew had gone to bed, I made a decision. I had to confront him. I had to find out what the hell was going on. I couldn't just sit back and watch this unravel. I had to know. I walked into the living room where Diddy was sitting, alone, flipping through paperwork. He looked up at me and smiled, but his eyes weren't right. There was something in them, a coldness, a sharpness. He was hiding something. And I knew he knew I was on to him. "Everything all right?" he asked. His voice casual, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. It wasn't the warm, confident charm I had seen all day. It was something else. I hesitated, then spoke. I saw something. Something in the mirror. During the shoot. For a moment, he didn't say anything. He just stared at me. The room felt thick with tension. I could feel him calculating, weighing his words. "What did you see?" he finally asked, his voice low. "I'm not sure," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. There were faces. People in the reflection. People you... "Enough!" His voice was suddenly sharp, commanding. He stood up, his eyes flashing. "Don't say another word about that mirror, it's nothing." But I wasn't backing down. "Diddy, I know what I saw. There's something in that mirror. It's showing you things you don't want anyone to know." He looked at me for a long time, then sighed. The anger in his face faded, replaced by something darker, something tired. "You have no idea what you're talking about," he said quietly. "The mirror doesn't show anything. It just remembers." I didn't know what that meant, but I could feel a shift in the room. The air grew heavier, like the walls themselves were closing in. Diddy stepped closer, his voice almost a whisper. "You don't want to know what it remembers. Trust me. Some things are better left forgotten." I didn't say anything. What could I say? But the more I looked at him, the more I realized he wasn't just trying to protect a secret. He was terrified of it. Terrified of what the mirror might reveal. That was the moment I understood. The mirror wasn't just a reflection. It was holding something. A memory. A truth that Diddy had buried so deep he couldn't face it anymore. And the more I uncovered, the more I realized that whatever it was, the mirror wasn't just a tool to see himself. It was a prison for his past. A prison he couldn't escape. And it wasn't just Diddy's past that the mirror was holding. Because the more I watched, the more I realized the mirror wasn't just remembering Diddy's secrets anymore. It was starting to remember mine. And I couldn't get that conversation with Diddy out of my head. His words echoed in my mind over and over. The mirror doesn't show anything. It just remembers. What was that supposed to mean? What could the mirror possibly remember? I knew I had to dig deeper. This wasn't just about Diddy's strange behavior anymore. There was something much bigger at play. I couldn't stop thinking about the faces I'd seen in the reflection. Who were they? The more I replayed those flashes of figures, the more convinced I became that the mirror wasn't just reflecting Diddy's image. It was holding something. Something buried so deep in his past that he was willing to go to great lengths to keep it hidden. I spent the next few days going through old interviews, articles, anything I could find about Diddy's early life. There were gaps in his story, things that didn't quite add up. Sure, there were rumors, as there always are with celebrities, but I couldn't ignore the feeling that something had been erased. Something important. I found a name. It wasn't a name Diddy had ever mentioned in public, at least not in any of the interviews I'd seen. And it wasn't a name that appeared in any of his biographies or media profiles. The name was Avery. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized it was someone close to Diddy. Someone he had been with before the fame. Someone who had been a part of his life, but was no longer there. Gone. Completely erased. I dug deeper. Avery had been a part of Diddy's inner circle in the early days. His right-hand person by all accounts. But then, suddenly Avery disappeared from the narrative. It wasn't like they had a falling out or parted ways amicably. No, it was as if Avery had never existed at all. I couldn't find any record of them. No articles, no interviews, no trace. It was like they were wiped from the face of the earth. I didn't understand why, and that's when I realized this wasn't just about Diddy's public persona. There was something darker behind that smile, something he was hiding from the world. And the mirror? It wasn't just showing his reflection. It was remembering Avery too. I started asking around, trying to find people who might have known about Avery, people who had been in Diddy's life before the fame. But no one would talk. Everyone I spoke to either avoided the topic or denied knowing anything about Avery at all. It was like the name itself was taboo, like it was some forbidden topic that no one was allowed to mention. But I wasn't giving up. The more I pressed, the more I realized that whatever happened to Avery, Diddy didn't want it coming to light. There was a dark shadow hanging over that name, and the deeper I dug, the more it felt like Diddy's past was coming back to haunt him. Then came the most devastating news of all. One night, after everyone had gone to bed, I stayed up late, reviewing some of the footage from earlier in the day. I wasn't expecting to find anything new, but when I saw Diddy standing in front of the mirror again, it felt different. This time, he wasn't alone. I saw it clearly on the screen. Avery's face appearing in the reflection behind him. For a split second, but it was unmistakable. I froze. The figure was clear as day. Avery, looking right at Diddy from behind him, a look of sadness and anger in their eyes. But then, just as quickly as they appeared, the reflection flickered, and Avery was gone. I played the footage back again, and again. Each time, the same thing happened. The figure of Avery would flicker in and out of the reflection like a glitch, a distortion in the mirror's surface. I couldn't explain it, but I knew what I was seeing. It wasn't a trick of the camera. It wasn't a glitch. It was something much more real. That's when it hit me. Avery wasn't just a part of Diddy's past. Avery was still with him, still haunting him. And the mirror?
The mirror wasn't just reflecting his image. It was holding Avery's memory, Avery's soul, perhaps, trapped in the glass, unable to escape. I wasn't sure what this meant, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that the mirror had always been more than just a tool for reflection. It was a keeper of memories, a vessel for the forgotten, the lost, the things that Diddy wanted to erase from his life.
I couldn't let this go. I had to confront Diddy again. This time, I needed answers. I couldn't stand by and watch him fall apart anymore. This wasn't just about his fame or his reputation. This was about something much darker, something buried deep within him and within that mirror.
I found him the next day, sitting alone in the study, looking over some documents. I took a deep breath and approached him.
"You were right," I said, my voice shaking. "The mirror, there's something in it. Something you don't want anyone to see." Diddy looked up at me, his eyes narrowing. "I told you to stay away from that mirror."
"I saw Avery," I said, my voice rising. "I saw them in the reflection. You're hiding something. Something huge."
Diddy stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. He moved toward the door, his expression unreadable. "You don't understand," he said, his voice cold. "This was never about Avery. This was about me and my mistakes. I buried it all, everything, so I could survive. You don't know what you're dealing with."
He didn't say another word. He turned and walked out of the room, leaving me standing there, stunned. But his words stayed with me, echoing in my mind. I buried it all. He was right. The mirror wasn't just a reflection of Diddy. It was a prison for everything he had buried. And whatever had happened to Avery, whatever Diddy was hiding, the mirror wasn't going to let it stay buried for long. But this wasn't just about Diddy anymore. The mirror wasn't just remembering his secrets. It was starting to remember mine. The more I tried to understand what was happening, the less I was able to make sense of it. Diddy's warning echoed in my mind. You don't know what you're dealing with. But what was I dealing with? What was the mirror? And why was it holding on to these secrets, pulling Diddy into his past every time he looked into it? It was like the more I uncovered, the deeper I sank into the mirror's twisted grip, and the more I began to realize it wasn't just reflecting anything. It was controlling everything. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I couldn't pretend that I was just some observer in this documentary. Something about the mirror had connected with me, too. It wasn't just Diddy who was being haunted by his past. It was starting to feel like we were all becoming part of this nightmare. I had seen Diddy lose his grip before, but now, it felt like the mirror was slowly starting to consume him piece by piece. And in the process, it was turning its focus on me. The more I stared at the reflection, the more I saw things that shouldn't have been there. Faces flickered behind Diddy. Avery, yes, but there were others too. People I couldn't recognize, yet they were undeniably familiar. It was like they were reaching out from the glass, trying to pull him in, trying to bring him back into the darkness. And each time, Diddy's eyes would shift, his expression changing, as if the mirror had a life of its own, forcing him to face the past he wanted to forget. I remember one night, after Diddy had left for an event, I decided to stay in the house and review some more footage.
I needed to understand what was going on. There was a lingering feeling, an uneasy feeling, that the more I looked into the mirror, the more it seemed to be alive. The way the light shifted, the shadows moving just a little too fast, like something or someone was behind it. As I played back the footage, I noticed something I hadn't caught before. Every time Diddy would stand in front of the mirror, there was a brief moment when the reflection didn't match up with reality. A flicker, a distortion. The colors would blur, and for a split second, the room behind him wasn't quite right. It was like I was seeing the mirror's true reflection, not the one Diddy was aware of. And the more I rewound and played it back, the clearer it became. The mirror wasn't just reflecting Diddy, it was reshaping everything. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up as I watched one of those distorted moments. It was fleeting, but I saw something, a figure, a shadow in the reflection. I couldn't make out the details, but it was a person standing right behind Diddy. They were dressed in old clothes, worn and tattered. Their face was obscured, but I could feel their presence. It was like they were there, watching, waiting. And for that split second, the reflection flickered again, and they were gone. I wasn't sure if I had imagined it, but I knew what I had seen. The mirror was showing me more than I could handle, more than I should have seen. I stood up, my hands shaking. I couldn't look at the screen anymore. I had to confront Diddy. I had to get answers, and I had to do it now. I found him in his study, poring over some papers. He looked up when I entered, his face still expressionless, but there was something different about him, something more guarded, like he knew what was coming. I didn't waste any time. "I saw it again," I said, my voice shaking. The reflection, there was someone there, someone else, behind you, in the mirror. He didn't react immediately. He just stared at me for a long moment like he was weighing something. Then, slowly, he stood up and walked over to the window. His back was to me as he spoke, his voice low. "Sometimes, the past doesn't let you go. Sometimes it's not about what you can see. It's about what sees you." I didn't understand what he meant, but I didn't have time to figure it out. I needed to press him further. "Diddy, who was that person? Who's in the mirror with you? Why are they still there?" His shoulders tensed, and for a moment, I thought he might explode, but he didn't. Instead, he turned slowly, his face now serious. The mirror doesn't show people. It shows truths. It doesn't care if you're ready for them or not. You can try to bury your past, but the mirror remembers. It remembers everything. Every mistake, every lie, every person you've ever hurt. He was silent for a moment, and then his gaze softened, just for a second. That person in the reflection, that's someone I'm not proud of, someone I can't escape. I didn't say anything. I didn't know what to say. What could I say? He was hiding something, and whatever it was, the mirror wasn't going to let it stay buried much longer. The more I thought about it, the more I realized. Diddy wasn't just facing his past. The mirror was pulling him into it, forcing him to relive every mistake, every betrayal. And it wasn't just memories it was holding. It was souls. The souls of those he had wronged, of those he had forgotten. And now, they were all there, trapped in the glass, waiting for Diddy to face them, to atone for what he had done. And the worst part? The more I looked into that mirror, the more I realized it wasn't just about Diddy anymore. It was starting to drag me in too.
I stood there, frozen in place, staring at Diddy. It was as if the mirror wasn't just reflecting him, it was controlling him, shaping his reality. And somehow, it was starting to do the same to me. I didn't know how much longer I could stay here, how much longer I could live in this house, knowing what the mirror held, knowing that it was slowly tightening its grip on us all. But I couldn't walk away. I needed the truth, and I knew deep down that the mirror wasn't going to let me leave until I had seen it all. But Diddy wasn't the only one losing control. The mirror wasn't just reflecting his past. It was beginning to reflect mine. The tension between Diddy and me was suffocating. Every time I tried to dig deeper, to uncover what was hidden behind that mirror, the answers seemed just out of reach. But the more I learned, the more I realized something. Whatever was happening with Diddy wasn't just psychological. It wasn't just his past creeping back. It was the mirror. The mirror was controlling everything. I couldn't keep pretending that this was just some weird quirk. This was something bigger. Diddy's face had changed. His demeanor had shifted, and I could see it. He was unraveling piece by piece. But the worst part? The mirror was feeding on it. Every time he looked into it, the reflection grew stronger. Every secret, every fear, every regret he tried to hide, it was coming out. And that reflection, it wasn't just showing him, it was changing him. One night, as we were filming a session in one of the rooms, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Diddy had turned away from the camera, standing in front of the mirror, talking to himself again. But this time, it was different. He wasn't just muttering quietly. No, this time, the mirror seemed to be responding. He looked into it and whispered, "I've done everything to forget. I can't keep running." The reflection was warping, shifting. It wasn't just Diddy anymore. It was someone else. I could see it. His expression was contorting, as if he was seeing something that wasn't there. The reflection was no longer just a mirror image. It was a force, alive and pulling at him, consuming him. It wasn't just showing his face. It was showing his soul. I had to leave. I had to get out of that room. But before I could move, Diddy turned and caught me watching. His eyes were wild, desperate, like he had seen something in the reflection that had broken him. He reached out, his voice low and shaking. "You don't understand what's happening here. You don't understand what the mirror is doing to me." I froze, caught in his gaze. I'd never seen him like this. Vulnerable, scared. He wasn't the powerful mogul anymore. He was just a man who had been consumed by something far bigger than he ever expected. "What is it, Diddy?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "What is in that mirror?" He shook his head, his body trembling. "It's not just a mirror. It's a prison. A prison that's holding everything I've ever done. Everything I've tried to forget. And every time I look into it, it pulls me deeper into the past. It doesn't let me go." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. He wasn't talking about vanity or ego. He wasn't even talking about his fame. He was talking about something else, something darker, something that the mirror had trapped him in. "I can't escape it," he whispered, looking away. "It won't let me." I didn't know what to say. It was clear now that Diddy wasn't just facing his past. He was facing something far worse.
The mirror had its hooks in him, and the more he tried to pull away, the deeper it was pulling him in. It wasn't just reflecting his regrets, it was controlling them. As I stared at him, I realized that Diddy wasn't just losing control of himself. He was losing control of everything, his mind, his sanity. The mirror wasn't just remembering his past, it was shaping it. It was rewriting his reality, turning every mistake, every failure, every hidden truth into something tangible, something powerful. And the worst part, the more I thought about it, the more I realized I wasn't just watching this happen. I was part of it. The mirror wasn't just influencing Diddy, it was influencing me too. I was being drawn into it, whether I wanted to be or not. I tried to shake off the feeling, tried to focus on the task at hand, but there was no ignoring it. I was connected to this now. I had uncovered too much, and the mirror was taking hold of me too. Diddy looked at me one last time before he turned away, as if he could feel my thoughts weighing on him. "I didn't want this," he said, his voice barely audible. "But the mirror won't let me go. It won't let any of us go." And I realized he was right. The mirror wasn't just a reflection. It wasn't just showing us our flaws or our past mistakes. It was trapping us in it. We were all prisoners, slowly losing ourselves to the things we couldn't forget. But it wasn't just Diddy who was losing control. The mirror wasn't just reflecting his past. It was starting to reflect mine. I thought I had seen the worst, but I was wrong. What Diddy had warned me about, the mirror, the things it had shown him, the way it had consumed him, was nothing compared to what I was about to discover. The more I tried to pull away, the more I realized I couldn't escape. The mirror had already taken hold of me. It wasn't just a reflection of Diddy's past. It was turning my reality into something unrecognizable. The longer I stayed, the more I saw things that weren't there. Felt things that didn't make sense. It was a Thursday night when it happened. Diddy was gone for a meeting, and I was left in the house, alone. I had always kept my distance from the mirror, never wanting to get too close. But tonight, something was different. I was drawn to it, like it was calling to me, urging me to step closer. I tried to fight it. I tried to focus on the work, but I couldn't ignore the pull. I walked toward it, almost in a trance, unable to stop myself. The closer I got, the more intense the feeling became. It was like the mirror was alive, watching me, waiting for me to look into it. I reached the mirror, my heart pounding in my chest. I stood there, staring at my reflection. At first, everything seemed normal, but then the reflection flickered. For a split second, I saw a shadow, not mine, move behind me. It was quick, like a whisper in the glass. And then, just like that, it was gone. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. I leaned in closer, barely able to breathe, my eyes fixed on the glass. And then, it happened. The reflection warped. Diddy's face appeared behind mine. His face, but twisted, distorted, like he was reaching out from the glass, trying to grab hold of me. I stumbled backward, my heart racing. The room felt colder. My surroundings started to blur, and I could hear the whispers again. Louder this time, demanding to be heard. "It's too late," the voice said, sounding like Diddy, but not. "You've seen too much." I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The mirror wasn't just showing me images, it was pulling me in. I saw Diddy, but I didn't see him. It was like his reflection had become something else, something dark. The deeper I looked, the more I felt myself slipping into that reflection, losing myself in it. That's when I realized this wasn't just about Diddy. This was about me now. The mirror had been feeding on both of us. It had taken Diddy's soul, and now it was coming for mine. The reflection didn't just hold the past, it rewrote it. It reshaped reality, warping everything it touched. And the longer I stood there, the more I felt myself being consumed by it. My own past, my own mistakes, my own fears started to appear in the reflection, haunting me in the same way they had haunted Diddy. I stumbled away from the mirror, my legs shaking. I couldn't take it anymore. I knew then, in that moment, that I was trapped. The mirror had already claimed me, just like it had claimed Diddy. We were both prisoners, connected by the glass. I couldn't escape it. I couldn't leave. The mirror had become a part of me, and there was no going back. I tried to run, tried to find a way out, but it was pointless. The more I resisted, the stronger its hold became. It had me, and I was no longer just an observer. I was part of the reflection. And as I looked back at the mirror one last time, I saw Diddy again, his distorted face grinning at me from behind the glass. But this time, it wasn't just his face I saw. It was mine too. We were both lost in that world now. Both trapped in the mirror's memory, unable to escape. The mirror doesn't just remember, it owns you. It's not a reflection. It's a prison, holding every secret, every lie, every mistake you've ever tried to bury. I thought I could walk away. I thought I could resist, but I was wrong. Once you step into its world, once you let it see you, it doesn't let go. Diddy thought he could escape. I thought I could escape. But the mirror isn't about escape. It's about trapping you, making you relive everything you've tried to forget. I saw Diddy's face one last time, his reflection distorted, twisted, like he was drowning in it. And I realized, too late, that I wasn't just watching him anymore. I was becoming him. And now, the worst part, I can never leave. The mirror has me, and once it has you, it's never letting go.